on screen now we can see our SuperMoto Group C grid. So front row it will be Dean Clark, Lewis Cowper and Ian Rogerson.
Row number 2, Liam Pearson 150, Edward Darnton number 41 and John Oakes number 95.
Yeah, and alongside John Oakes will be Jay Collins and Jason Laycock.
Phil Rigg, Max Rhodes, Steve Smith will be up next.
And then we'll have the number 6 of Tyler Clark, Jackson Bennett, Lily Rhodes and Andrew Goodsall there in 15th place.
It's looking good there. So when they're lining up on the grid there, of course, so am I right in saying Dean Clark, Lewis Cowper, Ian Rogerson and Liam Pearson all on 450 machines?
No. So Liam Pearson, I believe, is actually on a KTM 250 machine. So same CC as Lily Rhodes, currently down in 14th, and also Dax Almond, who we saw in our B group a little bit earlier on. So they are on slightly smaller capacity bikes, and on screen now you can see Liam Pearson on that bright orange machine with the white helmet and the pink leathers, so a little bit of a mismatch there, and behind him is Lily Rhodes on board her 250. The reason these riders might not be on 450s just yet is they are a little bit smaller, they are a little bit younger, and trying to manhandle a 450 can be quite a challenge. Not just the actual physical weight of the machine, but the centrifugal force of that 450 cylinder going up and down can be really challenging to try and throw into a corner. So these 250s are a great intermediate bike from the riders that have progressed up from our academy class on 85s up to these big bike supermoto classes.
Coming around to complete the warm-up lap then, there is your pole position man, the number 6 of Dean Clark with the KTM right across the chest on his leathers. So Dean Clark will take up that pole position, and at number 96 of Lewis Cowper, 162 Ian Rogerson will line up alongside. There is Lewis Cowper in the middle of that front row.
Yeah, ironic that Dean Clark's got KTM across his chest, but he's actually on a Husky. There is the 162 of Ian Rogerson. So he had a good battle with his brother in race 1, but is he going to be able to try and join him for the final race of the day in the Bs by putting himself into a promotion spot of top 2 in this race? There's Ed Darnton on the 85, alongside him Liam Pearson on the 150, and then row 3 you can see the 2 Bathmate boys sandwiching in the middle, Jay Collins on the 733.
95 John Oakes, as you mentioned there, with the support from Bathmate 733, you mentioned as well, alongside the 159 of Jason Laycock. So just a few more riders joining at the back of the grid. You can just about see them in the right-hand side of your picture, one of which was the number 6 of Tyler Clark, who didn't have the best of races earlier on, unfortunately.
No, he didn't. It looked like he had a bit of a mechanical incident in the off-road section, but managed to rejoin that academy race, losing a few positions. So we'll wait for these riders to get under starters' orders, and there we go. So the red flag at the front, we point to the lights, and away they go. So it is a good launch there from Ian Rogerson on the inside there on the number 3 position, as we watch as they make their way down towards the mere hairpin.
So on towards mere hairpin they go then, hard on the brakes, and is that the 162 machine of Ian Rogerson who's leading the way? So Lewis Cowper is right there with them. Is that Edward Darnton up into 3rd position already on that number 41 machine?
It is. So Edward Darnton, great start there from the 2nd row. So Sean Rogerson capitalising on the front row start and putting himself into a whole shot position. Then it is Cowper from Darnton. Then that looks like Dean Clark's been had off again on the start on that number 6, demoted down to 4th. Yeah,
it looks like a little bit of contact further down the order, but both riders keeping it rubber side down as now they head in towards the dirt section for the first time. So of 9 laps this will be, and it is Ian Rogerson, number 162, who's looking to join his brother in the Bs for race number 3 later on, but of course still plenty of racing left in this one as Darnton goes to the outside. That will give him the inside line and use that inside berm as they make their way out of the dirt section and then back onto the tarmac. But that is where we'll find our race leader of Ian Rogerson as Edward Darnton moves up to 2nd position on that 85cc 2-stroke.
Absolutely cracking pass there from the number 41 of Darnton as he comes round farm bends and onto the start-finish straight. Is he able to pull enough of a gap to not allow the 450 to pull past him? It looks like Cowper is going to use all the horsepower he's got and make Darnton work for it as they head down towards mere hairpin. So it is... Oh, Cowper shutting the door on Darnton there.
It certainly was there. Edward Danton, he won't take that lightly or laying down, will he? Because he's going to try and find a way through on the number 96 of Lewis Cowper and give it back as good as he got it as they head in towards the paddock section once again. Now, I can imagine this is where Edward Danton makes up the time, because obviously he got a bit more power with the 450s, but that 85cc two-stroke, it'll pick up quickly, and there's a whole lot less weight to stop as well.
It does, and we've seen him look really, really comfortable through the off-road section. We've also had a change for fourth place, so Jason Laycock on board his Bathmate machine. He's managed to promote himself up to fourth in front of Dean Clark. Then it is Liam Pearson there on the 150, the KTM 250, keeping the pressure on just into shot there. So we'll keep an eye on, and I think that's also, is that Steve Hillier? Scott Hillier, sorry, Dad Steve. He's not racing this weekend, but Scott Hillier there. He's redeeming himself after a tricky day yesterday. And we're watching Scott Hillier there going up the inside of Dean Clark on the off-road. And it looks like a mistake there from Ed Danton.
It certainly did. He was scampering up the step up then that brings him out onto the tarmac, but just made a slight mistake. And that is promoted. Is that the 159 machine? Hard to tell from this distance. But either way, Edward Danton unfortunately losing track position.
Yeah, that was Jason Laycock there, capitalising on that mistake there from Danton. But fastest lap time goes to Scott Hillier there with a 122.5 from the number 86 as they come back into shot. There's Hillier keeping the pressure on Laycock, and it looks like we've had a mistake there from Max Rhodes as he's just been lapped by our race leader, Ian Rogerson, who's out in front to the tune of 2.6 seconds on that last lap. But it looks like Rhodes there trying to use that for a little bit of a tow, so he must have gone down earlier on.
Yeah, that'll prove vital there for Rhodes as well on bike number 58 there, wasn't it? I mean, if you've got the likes of Ian Rogerson just in front of you, and then you want to try and latch on and see where he's making up more time, and just use that and add a little bit more skill as well. So he may be a lap down, but it's still a worthwhile race, because he'll be learning the skills that Ian Rogerson is currently using to lead this race.
Yeah, we see there Rogerson opting for the inside to outside line here through our Trips UK off-road section, heading back up towards the tarmac, and then nicely does it, getting the power down, heading towards Farm Bends. Now, let's see what Ed Danton can do through this off-road section if he's able to try and regain some of those positions from that earlier mistake.
Across the line for your race leader of Ian Rogerson, so we'll try and pick them up as they come past us now. And yeah, Edward Danton is there in fourth position, because in second place it's Scott Hillier who's come through into second place on bike number 86 ahead of Lewis Cowper, Edward Danton, Jason Laycock, and then Dean Clark, number 6. Your pole position man in sixth position.
Yep, so it is Scott Hillier, the man on the move here. He's managed to find a way through both Danton and Cowper to promote himself up to second place. But is he going to have the chance to be able to eke into that lead of Ian Rogerson? There's the 159 of Laycock there, chasing down Cowper. And is Danton able to use that, the nimbleness of the 85 to be able to put the pressure on as they head towards the off-road?
Well, he's certainly trying, and he's got Jason Laycock and Dean Clark lining up behind him now as Jason Laycock looks for an outside pass. In fact, it's Dean Clark, my apologies, but he runs a little bit wide, and Edward Danton just says, thank you very much, I'll have that position back. Yeah,
I think Clark there stalling that Husky, so big mistake there from the number 6 of Dean Clark on the entrance to the off-road. Trying to get past those pesky kids and trying to outbrake him, but just not quite able to make that move work for him.
Yeah, it's cost him a little bit of time and quite a few positions as well as he goes for the inside, then the outside. And was that John Oakes who's fallen behind now, and that is for around about 9th or 10th position, I believe, for the number 6 of Dean Clark.
In the infield section there, we have the number 58 of Max Rhodes, so he's having an absolute nightmare of a race. Looks like he may have pulled off there into the infield of our off-road, but there is Dean Clark, and like you say, I think he may have dropped now down to behind the 95 of John Oakes as they come out onto the start-finish.
Well, that's where they're heading now, and you're absolutely on the money there. John Oakes in 9th, Dean Clark in 10th position as through goes Danton. We're looking at 5th place position now. Danton showing as being in 5th place behind Laycock, Cowper, Hillier, but back at the front, Ian Rogerson has a 4.8 second lead as we have a look at the number 96 of Lewis Cowper.
Yep, it was 4.8 seconds as they crossed the line last time, but it looks like the 86 of Scott Hillier is about a second faster on that last lap than the 162 of Rogerson. So with 5 laps to go, he could be able to put a bit of pressure here on Rogerson and see if he can take a race win here at Oliver's Mount today.
It's a tall order there, but anything can happen, especially in this dirt section as well, and that is where the number 86 of Scott Hillier, the 96 of Lewis Cowper are currently. So inside, then outside for Lewis Cowper. There goes the 159 of Jason Laycock just out of picture now, and not quite having enough momentum to leap over the final jump that brings him out onto the finish straight here again. But Darnton's through. That was Edward Darnton up in front now of Jason Laycock for 4th position.
Yep, it was Darnton there nipping through on the off-road section, but then he is hampered with this long start-finish straight, and it looks like Laycock just lining it up there to retake that position back from Darnton. We have another fastest lap time being popped in there by the 86 of Scott Hillier, and that was a 1:20.679 there. So the gap out to Rogerson still about 4.5 seconds on that last lap.
Darnton through again on Jason Laycock as they make the way from the lower paddock up into the top side of the paddock, and then hard on the brakes now. And Real just stepping out a little bit there for the battle for 3rd. But either way, Edward Darnton up into 4th position now, and Lewis Cowper isn't too far up the road. It was 1.3 seconds as they came across the line, but you can just see the nimbleness of that 85cc machine. It just means he can open up a bike length or so in that paddock section.
And it looks like Laycock's now coming under pressure from the 150 of Liam Pearson on board that 250. So we'll see if Pearson's able to do anything through this off-road section. Whether he takes a different split lane to him. He doesn't. He does follow, taking inside to outside, apologies. Darnton opting for the opposite line as they make their way up that step up.
Oh, that's Tyler Clark in the paddock, unfortunately. So Tyler Clark has dropped that machine in the paddock.
Yep, so that is where the riders jump up the banking into our paddock infield section. So the number 6 rider down and trying to remount, but it is still Darnton out in front. He's managed to find a way through on Cowper, who again is just retaking that position from Darnton as they came across the line. So Darnton now devoted back down to 4th place as Cowper retakes 3rd. But I don't think Darnton's going to let him have it for very long.
I think you might be right on that one as the yellow flags wave in the paddock. For the benefit of the spectators here as well at Oliver's Mount, Tyler Clark was absolutely okay, but no jumping, of course, as they make their way up into the upper paddock now. But what I noticed on that lap as well is that Darnton, he loses position as he goes in towards mere hairpin, but he leads as he came across the line.
Yeah, Darnton able to brake so much later on that 85, and like we saw yesterday, he was still on the gas as these 450s were starting to break into mere hairpin, so he's able to make up a lot of ground there with those 85 being a lot lighter to be able to stop as well. So Darnton there taking a lovely line over that top berm, then over the step up and through, taking the inside to outside line there through and heading towards this step up. And it looks like Laycock there following him as well. Not making it through as cleanly, but Darnton trying to look up the inside of Cowper yet again.
I think with the kids as well, they don't really know the meaning of fear, do they? So that's working in favour of Edward Darnton at the moment, because he's now stalking the number 96 of Lewis Cowper. So they have swapped positions on this lap, but Darnton is still right there. And there's a bit of clear track behind him as well. So I think that Darnton could well go into mere hairpin, relatively unchallenged from behind on this lap with 2 laps to go.
Yep, out in front it is still the number 162 of Ian Rogerson that leads us, and it's a 4.7 second deficit down to Scott Hillier in 2nd place, but then it is about 12 seconds back to this man here, Lewis Cowper on the 96, who's being absolutely hounded by Edward Darnton, especially as they go into this tight infield section. So Darnton taking a wider line to see if he can make the cutback, and it looks like Pearson's managed to make a position up there on Laycock also.
He has, and he's put a bit of distance between himself and Liam Pearson. Jason Laycock as well has Liam Pearson. So the 150 now onto the rear end of that 85, number 41, Edward Darnton. So that is your top 5. Back at the front, Rogerson leads Hillier by 4.7 seconds. Then it's a 12-second gap back to the number 96 of Lewis Cowper, and he's through. Liam Pearson is now through on Edward Darnton. So Liam goes inside then outside, Edward goes outside then inside, and we'll look to just scamper over the jumps up the inside, and just like that he gets it done.
He does. Great pass there from Edward Darnton to retake that position. A quick glance over the shoulder there as he tries to pull a few bike lengths here on the 250, but Liam Pearson's not going to take that one lying down, and it is now the last lap. So last lap flag will be shown to these riders, and a good look over the shoulder there from the 150 of Liam Pearson as they make their way down the start-finish straight for the final time of asking. And we should then be able to see our as they make their way through mere hairpin. It is still Cowper out in front from Pearson and Darnton as they make their way through into our paddock section.
Yeah, looks like they're coming up on one of the tail enders as they go in towards this paddock section, so that could well work in favour of Lewis Cowper, or it may work against him. You don't know, and that's the trouble with the tail enders. I can say it can either work for you or against you, but they do move well out of the way, so great stuff there as they head towards the end of the paddock section now and in towards the dirt section. A little bit of a fresh air underneath the front wheel of Edward Darnton as they go into this off-road section. But Liam Pearson, I think, has enough of an advantage here, does he, over Darnton to not be challenged for that fourth position. But he's right there and close enough to put the pressure on Lewis Cowper.
Yep, Darnton opting for that switch line going outside to inside. Is he able to do a replica of that move on the 150 of Liam Pearson heading up the step up? I don't think he's quite close enough, but he's going to give it a good go. No, Pearson shuts the door on him as they make their way back onto the tarmac for the final time, and they come through Palm Bends. So it is Cowper who leads Pearson and Darnton as they come across the line.
Certainly is. So that is your top five all across the line now. There as the checkered flag goes out. Ian Rogerson, number 162, and the 86 of Scott Hillier will be promoted to the Trips UK A race for their third race later on this afternoon. Sorry, B race for later on this afternoon. And then Lewis Cowper, Liam Pearson and Edward Darnton inside the top five.
Yep, so that was a great race there in the mid-pack, but there was our race winner on screen now, just making his way through the paddock. So that is the 162 of Ian Rogerson there, so a well-deserved win from him, and he'll be joining his brother in, like you say, our B group for race 3 later on this afternoon. So we will let these riders pop down and get their podium moment. So there is the 86 of Scott Hillier. I think he will be chuffed with that one. And the 96 of Lewis Cowper, he was kept under pressure for nearly the entirety of that race from those pesky kids. But great racing there in our first race of the afternoon.
Just goes to show that power isn't everything there, is it? I mean, you got the nimbleness of the 85 keeping up with the more powerful 250s and the 450s as well. And in the end, they're pretty much equal around this Oliver's Mount circuit. So a great performance by all.
Yeah, and looking down the order, it was Jason Laycock that took 6th place from Philip Rigg in 7th. Then it was Jay Collins in 8th. And Dean Clark did manage to nip by on John Oakes on the closing stages of that race, so he manages to redeem himself to 9th with John Oakes in 10th. Then it was an 11th place for the 56 of Lily Rhodes there, and she manages to finish just in front of the 671 of Steve Smith in 12th. Then it was 13th place for Simon Billen, 14th Jonathan Reed, 15th Andrew Goodsill, 16th Darrell Brett, and then it was a 17th place for Tyler Clark after that off in our infield section, and 18th for Max Rhodes. There is our top 3 for the first race of the afternoon. So there you can see Ian Rogerson, Scott and Scott Hillier there on screen. So Scott there on that Goon Squad Racing KTM there, and it is a big wave there from Scott Hillier. There's Lewis Cowper, but on track now we've got our Race IQ B group making their way through for their warm-up lap, and it was the riders Tommy Sayer and Sean Rogerson that promoted themselves up to this group from race 1 in our C, so they will start from the back of the grid in this one. But again, this was some really close racing in race 1.
It really was. And, I mean, just going back, I mean, outside of the top 5, the number 26 of Mike Norbury, he came from about 15th, 16th position or so on bike number 26 and found his way all the way through into the top 10 as we have a look at the podium for the group number C.
Yeah, there is our top 3 for our C Group race 2. So our spectators, they're over on the bank giving them a big cheer. They've done really, really well there, and those top 2 promoted up to the Bs. So it will be Lewis Cowper on pole for race 3 this afternoon, and he'll be joined by the 150 of Liam Pearson, and it will be a front row start for Edward Darnton.
That is impressive.